Hi, it's me, Karen Romano Young, back for day 13 of reading aloud from A Girl, a Raccoon, and the Midnight Moon by me, with pictures by Jessica Bagley, published by Chronicle Kids in 2020. Chapter 12, The Rock Lady, later, September 9th. Pearl lay in the garden grass below Vincent's feet, still sleepy from the wild night before her, her head buried in her arms, when she realized Francine was there beside her, toes clicking against the bricks. "What are you doing, Pearl?" "Writing a story." "I don't see a pencil," said Francine. "In my head," said Pearl. "You've got a pencil in your head?" Pearl rolled her eyes. For several minutes, Francine was so quiet, Pearl thought she'd gone away until she said, "What's it about?" These were magic words to a storyteller like Pearl. "It's about Vincent," she said, pointing up at the statue. She was sharply aware that for once an audience had come to her. Usually she had to look for one. Pearl began her story. So, Vincent wakes up one day, a cold winter day when the snow is falling and she's freezing hard as an ice cube. She wants to go into the library to get warm, but she can't move since she's a statue. "In my dance, the Rock Lady can't move," said Francine. "Your dance?" What was Francine talking about? Also, Vincent is not called the Rock Lady. Francine laughed. "Okay," she said, "tell me about the Rock Lady, no, Vincent, before she starts moving." Irresistible. "All right," said Pearl. So she starts to think about all the things she could do and see if only she wasn't frozen in place. Francine said, "Want to make up the story together?" If Pearl thought Francine had been listening, she was wrong. "Not if your story is about being headless," Pearl said. "I've never known her any way but headless," Francine admitted. "It's just that drama's more interesting than books. You should know. You're the one who screamed. What book did you ever scream about?" "I screamed because Vincent has been here since before I was born, so she's like a member of my family. And how would you feel if one of your family members got her head stolen?" Francine just said, "I think she's kind of cool headless." "What else do you think is cool? Dead dogs and car wrecks?" Pearl felt even as she said the words that they were way too harsh. It was Francine's turn to gape. "No," she said in a tiny voice, before tapping slowly away down the alley. Too bad, Pearl thought, surprised at the drop she felt in her stomach at Francine's departure. Any audience was better than no audience. But then Francine came flying back, her feet clattering. "He's coming, that reporter!" And Mom and Simon appeared in the doorway with Jonathan Yoicks. 2 days ago, Pearl would have been overjoyed to see Yoicks. More publicity to help them get Vincent back. Now she thought of Mr. Bull and Mr. Dozer and how that publicity had turned out. What would Yoicks do with the Mr. Nichols break-in? Francine was grinning up at the reporter, acting like she was ready for her close-up. Edna St. Vincent Millay was a unique New Yorker, Pearl offered slyly. Yoicks said, "That's not my angle on her." He walked around the garden, taking pictures of Vincent from different sides. That was not what he meant by angles. He meant type of story, news, feature, human interest, profile. At the moment, Vincent didn't fit any of those. The truth was that Yoicks didn't seem to know exactly what kept drawing him back to the library. I call it journalistic instinct. "What did you come back here for?" Pearl finally asked. "I came back to see my friend," Yoicks said. Francine stood taller and smiled as if she was ready for another pose, but Yoicks was nodding at Vincent. A sidebar about saving other souls. You might call it SOS. If you want to save someone, knowing what to do is half the battle, whether it's figuring out what to give a homeless person, rescuing a helpless animal, and so on. These are common skills that you can learn. But the hardest battle is noticing that there's a problem in the first place. That is another ability altogether, something that comes from the heart, by M.A.M. "Is this for the paper?" Francine couldn't resist asking. "Just for me, for now," Yoicks said with a sigh, "until I can convince my editor it's worth covering. A human interest story from a neighborhood like this? It would help Lancaster Avenue's image, or even some crime leads. You don't have any clues about that lost head yet, do you? It would be a better story if it got found someplace dire. That would make everybody happy, good and dramatic, headline worthy. Pearl squinted at him. Why was he here if there wasn't a story good enough, dramatic enough for his editor? She said, as if she was a television detective, well, they didn't use the wheelbarrow, and they didn't roll it in the grass. They? The head robbers, she said, the criminals. Francine said, the decapitators, in a way that made Yoicks chuckle. How much do you think a head like that might weigh? He asked. As much as a bowling ball, Pearl said. It's like a block of concrete. There was a strange little outraged peep from behind the bushes, but not a person there heard it, except the boy who made it. Here's another thought, said Yoicks. From what I've seen of vandalism, it's about cheap thrills. Sometimes people just want to mess with your head. Oops, sorry. What do you mean? Asked Simon, sidling over. Pearl caught his eye. Why was the reporter here, since there was nothing to report on? Why was he hanging around talking to a bunch of kids about a statue of a dead poet? Yoicks turned to Simon. I mean, the thrill for vandals is beheading the statue and having everybody wake up and find it gone. Once the pranksters have done that, they might just take the head and toss it somewhere nearby. If I were a vandal who'd stolen a head, Yoicks mused, the first thing I'd do is get rid of the evidence. Now Simon caught Pearl's eye. If the kids could solve the crime, would that be a juicy enough story for Yoicks' editor? Hey! Yoicks gave a startling sort of whisper and caught all their eyes. He cocked his head toward the garden and the pine trees. Who's that kid? He asked softly. They looked to where he was pointing his chin and saw the back of a boy wearing baggy cargo shorts and a day-glow green shirt. The boy saw them looking and darted away across the yard that backed up to the library garden. He's a spy, Pearl said. I've never seen him before in my life. You think you know everybody, said Francine, but I've seen that kid. He goes to Gully's all the time. Well, he's gone now, said Yoicks, and so must I be. You all keep your eyes open and your thinking caps on. Since that was the kind of smarmy thing adults said to kids, Pearl and Francine caught each other's eyes and made faces. Trouble is, you don't know a good story when you hear one, said Pearl. Tell it to my editor, said Yoicks, or maybe I should say, tell it to the Marines. Stand up to him, said Francine. Yoicks just laughed and left. Simon trailed him, but not before hissing at the girls. Leave that kid alone, you guys. If he's too shy to come to the library, don't make it worse for him. The minute he was gone, Pearl began crawling through the yew bushes along the back of the library property. What are you doing now? Asked Francine, tapping nervously next to the statue. Looking for Vincent's head. What do you think? If that boy can sneak around back there, maybe it's a good place to hide things. Pearl had to crouch to avoid clonking her head on the low branches of the pine trees. It was surprisingly dense in there. Is it spidery? Are there rats? Called Francine. Pearl didn't answer on purpose to increase the suspense. She felt as if she was in a forest. Pearl, are you okay? Quit worrying about me, yelled Pearl, creeping back to the fence. An old wooden shed-shaped box came into sight. Could it be that easy? She'd open the lid, look inside, and there would be Vincent's head. No, it was just somebody's old stuff. A flannel shirt, too hot for a day like this, some other clothes, a duffel bag, and a mailing tube. She opened that. A thick roll of envelopes, letters to some woman Pearl didn't know, Bernice Hernandez, Esquire, in Albany, New York, which was the state capital. Did you find her? Francine called from outside the bushes. No, said Pearl, just some old junk. She emerged from the trees, asking, why would that boy lurk around here near those smelly dumpsters? She felt satisfied with herself about the exploration and proud to have the secret of the box to herself. Francine suggested, maybe he's just shy. Maybe he saw you dancing, Pearl teased. Maybe he wants you to dance some more. Francine looked amused. She started tip-tapping on the path. Anyway, what's the story behind your Rock Lady dance? Pearl asked, cursing herself for even thinking the name Rock Lady. Francine gave her a distrustful eye and sat down in the grass, leaning back on her hands. Tell me your story first. Why? Because I don't believe you can think of a really good one. You don't seem to have that much creativity to me. You just tell stories out of books. Pearl went deadly quiet. She knew a challenge when she heard it. She thought Francine was, what had Ramon said? Throwing down the gauntlet? She leaned forward and tapped her forehead. It's all right here, she said, as if her brain held treasure. Francine snorted, but a man's voice said, I'd put my money on any story of Pearl's. Mr. Nichols, Pearl jumped up. He looked the same as ever. Denim jacket, clean khaki pants, one of his 4 t-shirts, the one with the arrowhead on it, and the words arrow nails. Pearl didn't know why, but part of her had expected he would look different after the alarm incident. I'm here to tell you that your mother's looking for you and that I'm leaving. It's not closing time already, is it? Francine sprang up from the ground. Pearl wondered what the drama was about closing time. What would that granny of hers do if she came home and found Francine not there? Anything? No, hon, said Nichols. It's not even noon. You're not leaving for good, right? Asked Pearl. That isn't what you meant, going back, were you? Where I came from? No, he said. I don't have anything back there. What do you have here? Francine asked. Pearl could have killed her, but Nichols smiled his sweetest smile. All this, he said, spreading his hands again. But Pearl, your mother is not happy with me. She's just worried about the library's reputation, said Pearl. She'd woken up to Bruce and Mom arguing about how this will look to the neighborhood that morning. Fortunately for me, I think Mr. Bull and Mr. Dozer have the hotter story, Nichols said. Vincent's the hot story, said Pearl desperately, knowing she was wrong. Not that many people are interested in an old statue, he said carefully. But the statue started all this, said Francine, didn't she? Among others, said Nichols. Like who? Said Francine. How about you? Said Nichols to Francine. Pearl couldn't believe Francine would get all the credit again. Me? You'd never been to the library before the head went missing, right? And with that, Nichols turned and went down the driveway, his heavy, worn-out backpack over his shoulder, the umbrella under his arm. The girls watched solemnly. Francine might not know everything about Vincent and the library, figured Pearl, but she knew that Nichols was homeless and liked him anyway. Grown-ups always told you not to talk to the homeless people that slept in the street. But what was so bad about not having a home? Shouldn't everyone feel sympathetic to people who didn't have a place to live? She could tell that Francine, too, was wondering where Nichols was on his way to, maybe asking herself where he was going to sleep, and that made Pearl warm even more toward her. But then Francine said, Do you think he stole the head? What? That's stupid. Why would he? Pearl stalked off, leaving Francine kicking at the grass. I don't know. Everyone seems to think the stolen head is what made me come to the library. But it wasn't. It was you screaming. Drama, in other words, said Pearl with great scorn. She threw her arms around Vincent's pedestal and wondered what was going to become of them all. Drama? I thought someone was being killed. That's not drama? No, that's caring. I thought maybe you were hurt. I thought maybe you needed saving. Pearl snapped, and you thought you could save me? Francine looked so hurt, but she changed to mad really fast. Save you? No, obviously. You do everything yourself. You could save yourself. Yourself! She wasn't even making sense, and with that she was gone, running down the driveway, her tap shoes clacking no rhythm at all. Pearl was left behind, alone, and thinking about Francine, wanting to save her. Was it drama? She, Pearl, had screamed for a real reason, and Francine's reason for running to her rescue to help was actually quite noble. And the rest of the neighborhood? Had they had such good intentions? Take Gully, for example. He was a neighbor. He had known her mom forever. It was natural that if something went wrong at the library, he would want to know what was up. Maybe caring was what made him want to know what happened, but drama was what had made him come and see for himself. It was Pearl's scream, the whiff of drama, that had brought him to the library the day Vincent's head got stolen. Or was it worry that his business was going to be affected by that drama? It was flashing lights, scary and awful to Pearl, but drama to the max for Gully, that had pulled him out of bed at 3 a.m. Pearl got an idea, like a glimpse of light through a dark window. If drama had made Gully come running, What did it do for other people? Answer. It made them do things they would normally not do for one reason or another, like come to the library. Pearl hadn't meant to scream, but she had created drama that once. Realizing this felt like a little jolt of power. She wondered, could she do it again? And how? See you tomorrow.